The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So thrilled to be here with you this morning on this bright Thursday as a lot of our kids are going back to school. For those of you who are the holdouts on the East Coast that don't go back for 2 weeks, enjoy it. Enjoy it because we're already well and truly back at school now here in the Los Angeles area. I want to welcome you all to be here. We're going to be with you live for the next hour talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. So we welcome the entire autism community. And when I speak of that, I speak of the larger autism community. Of course, that always includes the individuals who are on the spectrum themselves, of course, right? But then I consider that it includes all of us who care about those individuals. So whether you're a parent, you're a practitioner, you're a teacher, you're a sibling, you're a boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Husband or wife, we all have one thing in common, and that's that we love and respect individuals who are on the autism spectrum and want to help them to get to the progress and the resources and the support that they so richly deserve, right? So that's what we're here for. And it's not going to be a one-size-fit-all conversation, right? Because different people come in at different points and need different things. But we do love it when you interact with us and tell us what you need. Because I'm very fond of saying, I gave up mind reading when my child was diagnosed with autism. So don't make me guess, is what I'm saying. So write it in, tell us what you need. And I love to help pay forward, because I, as a parent of an individual on the spectrum, I got so much help and support that it was able to help me and was able to help my son. So I have a responsibility to pay it forward. So write in and ask your questions. The fabulous Traven is going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us, some of the different ways that you can have your voice heard, and ways that you can be watching the show. Somebody wrote in yesterday and said that, yes, we've been having problems with our Roku channel and we're attempting to rectify that because I know some of you are wanting to watch on Roku. We're working on it. It's been a problem for a while. But you can watch us in all these other different ways in the meantime. And I do want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, lots of things to do, not the least of which is watch the live show, right? Or you can watch the most recently recorded live show. But you can also go back through, oh my gosh, it's almost 9 years worth of shows at this point, and search topics, search interviewees, experts, search inspiration. It's all there for you. And we've tried to make it as user-friendly, knowing that different people use things in different ways. So if you're visual, there are visual cues. If you're somebody who likes text, there are text cues. All of which, though, culminates in there is the chat at the bottom of the page. And if you want to chat with me in real time, I'm just opening up the box right now, which, by the way, I'm on the website too right now. And I don't want to forget to tell you that when you first come on the website, one of the first things that happens about 6 seconds after you're on the website is that a little pop-up bumps up and it says, would you like to subscribe? Really want to encourage you that if you would like to subscribe, what happens is every week at the beginning of the week, we send you a viewer guide that lets you know who's going to be on the show. Let me just tell you something. You're not going to want to miss Monday's show. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you who is going to be on Monday, but you need to mark your calendar and not miss Monday's show because You know what I'm saying? But if you get the viewer guide, you'll know who's going to be on the show all week long, and you'll go, oh, I want to tune in and see that. Now, do you have to tune in on Monday to watch Monday's show? No, you don't have to tune in on Monday or Monday in the morning. You could tune in Monday night. You could tune in on Tuesday and watch Monday's show, because we podcast our shows to YouTube. They're available on Facebook Live, but then they stay there for a few days. And the shows are all available on iTunes as well. And it's a free download, which is a pretty cool thing. And if you choose to, you can download on iTunes either with picture or just sound if you want to take us in the car or take us on the jog. But on Monday, you're going to want to see. You are going to want to see. Anyway. I'm not giving it away. I'm telling you tomorrow. So in any case, we're thrilled to be here with you. I do like to remind you at the start of the show that we have lots of experts on the show, and boy, have I got some experts for you today. But don't confuse me with one of the experts, because I'm not. I am, as I mentioned before, a mom of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. I'm a very proud mom. And I'm a former teacher, and I'm somebody who's deeply, deeply grateful and moved by the amount of help and support that I got. Can I tell you that in the beginning, it didn't feel like I was getting help and support, and it felt like the whole world was against us. And I felt like I was a person by myself on Mars. So if you're feeling that way, just know that I can relate to that. But what I found along the way, and what I came to understand, was that there are so many people out there who think of you, don't even know your name, but they're thinking of you. I'm now one of those people, and want to help you to get to the resources that you need, right? You know what I always say here, si se puede, and we hold hands and we get through this together, right? So don't be shy, write in. Sometimes I know you just need a place to vent, and you can. And we have the live feature, by the way. I didn't even mention that. I did mention the chat on Autism Live. Totally anonymous, totally free. You can write in anything. I won't give any information that reveals who you are, and I'm the only person who gets to see it. So that having been said, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. We're going to get some great stuff done today. And we want to start off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? Why do I need to know? Why should I care? Right? What has this got to do with anything? But you know, what we find is that the jargon, it serves a purpose, right? For the experts, it serves the purpose that they can talk about something very specifically with fewer words. It leaves us feeling like we're left out. So we give you the actual definition. We then make as much fun of it as I can muster, and often that's a lot. And then we give you a working definition, which isn't as precise, but helps you to understand how this term might help you save time and money, because really that's what it's all about, at least from my point of view. Okay, one of the things that's confusing about jargon is that sometimes you get a word that seems like a word that you might know, but it means something entirely different when we're talking about autism and we're talking about ABA therapy. So here we have it, Carol Merrill. Our term for today is baseline. And if you look this word up in the dictionary, it will tell you that it's the white line on a baseball field, right? It does have other definitions as well. So what does baseline have to do with autism? Let's take a look at our actual definition. Baseline is a measurement of the variable of interest at the beginning of treatment or a study that is used to compare to later measurements in order to judge the effectiveness of the treatment or conditions. Now, as definitions go, it's long, but it's not that convoluted, right? It can be a little bit easier than that. What's a baseline? Let's take a look at our working definition, and what does this have to do with us? Baseline is what's happening before the treatment. So let's say that Bobby is spitting, and we have a question about somebody spitting. Let's say that Bobby is spitting at people, and we go, well, what's our baseline? We want to know how many times and how often and in how many situations is Bobby spitting before we start doing therapy. And it's a way of measuring, is what we're doing effective, right? So there is a period of time in which you might be asked as a parent or a practitioner or even as the individual who's on the autism spectrum to note how many times something happens, or even does it happen at more one time of the day than other, because we want to get a baseline. Where are we starting? Where are we starting out on? And so we'll see that Bobby is spitting 14 times a day. Okay, that's miserable, right? But we get the baseline and we go, okay, Bobby's spitting 14 times a day. And then we start the intervention and we see one of two things. Well, I guess one of three things. It either becomes more often, stays the same, or Bobby does it less, right? And we want to look at all of those different things. I got to be honest with you, to a parent, you like, well, I want it to go down. If it goes up, it means that the treatment isn't working. That isn't always the case. In fact, for some treatments, there's a treatment, there's a specific thing, a procedure, that's the word I want, that's called an extinction procedure. And often when we put something on extinction, we will see that it actually rises at the very beginning. And that actually is a good sign that the therapy is working, because it shows that there's some desperation, that the person is still trying really hard to get it the way that they used to get it. Oh, and then we see a sharp incline. That's what you see when it's an extinction procedure. First it goes up and then foom, right? Because it's no longer working. So we would want to see that uptick, right? If it's an extinction procedure. But most of the time, if we're putting a treatment in place, what we want to see is for it to go down. What we don't want to see is that flat line, that there's no effect in what we're doing. If that's the case, then we would change one variable, not all of the variables. So if Bobby's spitting and we see that he's spitting 14 times and we look and go, what's the function of the spitting? What is he getting out of the spitting? How, what is the paycheck that he gets for spitting? Is it attention? We've talked before on the show about the 4 usual suspects. Is it attention? Is it access to someone or something? When Bobby spits, do they run and get mommy? And mommy comes and says, oh, we got to leave now and got to go home and eat goldfish crackers? I would spit if mom could come and get me and take me home and eat goldfish crackers, right? So, sometimes it's to get away from something. If we're doing math and we're starting to do the math problems and Bobby starts spitting at the person next to him, we go, oh, okay, time out for you. And now he doesn't have to do math. Woohoo! He got out of math, right? And sometimes the 4th usual suspect is when people do things because somehow it feels good. Like some kids spitting, the active spitting and the feel of the spit, and they'll play with it on the desk. It feels good to them. So, we would figure out what the function is, and intervention would be put in place. A behavior intervention plan would be put in place, and we would track how often now is Bobby spitting. And if it's a week later and Bobby is only spitting 7 times a day, well, then we know progress has been made. And this is why this is important, because when you're spitting 14 times a day, it's a particular ring of hell, right? Because it's just like, oh, it's happening all the time. And if somebody is still spitting 7 times a day, it would be very easy to be like, this isn't working. But when we can really look at it and go, well, the baseline was 14 and we're at 7, that's quite an improvement, and it means we're moving in the right direction. It prevents us from throwing out a treatment plan that is at least partially working. And as parents, a lot of what it is what it feels like to us. And I always, the data is not my favorite thing, but I gotta be honest, it's our friend. There were times, especially in the first year that my son had early intensive behavioral intervention, when I just was like, I don't know. I feel like we're not making the progress. I know how far we have to get, and he's not having complete sentences yet, and I don't feel like we're making progress. And then they would be able to sit down and show me the graphs and show me how much he was learning. And I was like, is that how far we've come? And I could look at all of it and go, oh, okay, because our baseline was here and now he's here. I wanted us to be up here, but here was substantial. So I do think it's worthwhile for parents to look at the graphs. It separates the emotion and the fear out of it, and having a baseline of knowing where did we start and where are we now is important. I like to have baselines that are tied to things, rituals that are every year. Like every year we would go to the autism walk, and I would be able to compare from last year and go, hey, we are so much better than we were last year. Like we can do this now that we couldn't do before. Or, there were different events that happened during the year, and those would be sort of my checkpoint. So you can have a baseline for yourself as a parent and go, oh, that's right. Last year we couldn't walk down the sidewalk, and this year we can. But your team is going to take a baseline on the most minute things, and sometimes it's going to make you get itchy. It's okay. it's okay. Let them take the baseline, because if they got the baseline, then they can show you how much improvement has been made, and it will help to soothe your soul. And progress is progress, baby. It's all progress, right? Okay, so moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. Okay, are you ready for this question? We're going to take a baseline for you. How long can you sit still? Like, isn't this a great question? Because I am not somebody who's good at sitting still. I'm a fidgeter, man. I've always got some little thing going on. That's my self-stimulatory behavior. But for you, how long can you sit still? I know that there are people out there who don't love the video game thing, but I think that certain video games can be really good. We loved, and I gotta admit that we don't use it anymore, and we should. We got the Wii Fit thing, and on the Wii Fit, there are several different things, and what's very fun is that they always take a baseline. So you try something out, and they take the baseline, and then they have you work on it, and then you get to see your progress, and it's very motivating, it's very reinforcing. But one of the things that they have is a meditation piece where you sit on the Wii Fit board, and they have this little avatar of you, and there's little candles, and they ask for you to breathe and sit still. And the board registers if you're fidgeting, and it will make a noise, right? And they count how long you can sit still. So I just thought that'd be a fun way of looking at baseline, but also I think we all need to be realistic, right? It's the time of year, you guys, when everybody's going back to school, and the IEP says that, it has the IEP benchmark, that it says that your child, let's say that your child is in first grade, and your child will be able to sit and attend in circle time for X number of minutes in 4 out of 5 trials, right? And that he or she will be able to do this by this and so date. And a lot of times, well-meaning people who I don't know what their reality is, will set a period of time for our children to be able to sit and attend to something that isn't realistic. And so there are ways that we can circumvent and make it so that the child can attend but not necessarily sit still. It's why we put some kids on a little cushion that is a little bit uneven, so they get to do a little bit of fidgeting to find their balance. It's why we put some kids on the big balls to balance on, because they get a little bit of motion. It's very hard to sit still, is my point. You can learn to sit still longer. You can work on it and make it reinforcing, and I really recommend that Wii Fit board, because you don't lose anything when you can't sit still anymore, but it's kind of fun, and you can have like contests with your child to see, I'm going to see how long I can sit still, you see how long you can sit still. But let's keep it realistic at school, right? But I'd love to know, how long can you sit still? I am not capable of doing it for more than like 7 seconds. I'm just saying, it's not my forte. But fortunately, I'm not in a job where I have to sit absolutely still. That would be horrible. Me and an MRI, it's a disaster area. What can I tell you? Okay, moving on. We always have a topic of the week. And our topic that we've been working on this week, dun, da, 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 is manifestation. And I know everybody goes, oh, we're going to get all airy-fairy here, but no. It's really about this idea that what you think becomes what you say, becomes what you do, becomes what you feel, and how you feel about the world. And it's not a magic trick. We're not talking about magic here, where you think about a cheese sandwich and a cheese sandwich falls from the ceiling. I don't know that. I don't know how that ever happens to anyone. But I do know that if you were to set your sights on a cheese sandwich today and say, what I really want is a cheese sandwich, you will notice more cheese and more bread than you would if you weren't thinking of a cheese sandwich. And then you will find yourself, someplace in the next couple of days, ordering a cheese sandwich, a grilled cheese sandwich, probably. I don't know why I said cheese sandwich. But I did. I went there. You know what I mean? It's like that thing. I love, there's an exercise that Tony Robbins does that he says to everybody, okay, I want you to look around the room and I want you to notice everything blue. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes to look around the room and notice all the things in the room that are blue. And so you focus on it and you go, okay, so there's blue there, there's blue there, there's blue here, whatever. And he says, okay, now I want you to close your eyes And I want you to just be still for a moment, picture the room, and now tell me everything in the room that's brown. Right? And you're like, brown? I wasn't looking for blue. Brown? Where's the brown? I don't know where the brown is. And then you open your eyes and it's like you're being attacked by brown. There's brown everywhere, but you hadn't noticed it before because all you were looking for was blue. So for me, manifestation is, what are you looking for? And I do think that our brains are these supercomputers, and whatever you look for is the thing that's going to come to the forefront. So what are you looking for? If you want something in your life, start looking for it. You want to manifest something, you want something to show up, start looking for it, and you will notice it. And you will notice it more often, and you will find yourself changing what you're doing to notice it more often. And that's how you change your brain. And that's how you manifest. I think that that's the secret. You know how they used to have that, the secret, and there was the video, The Secret. I think that's a big part of it. I'm going to, spoiler alert, because a lot of people watched The Secret and didn't watch till the end of the video. But the end of the video, and I'm just going to ruin it right here. The secret was to find a way to be happy. That was the secret. To be happy, not to try to make things in your life that are anything other than being happy. And so if there are things that you want that you think will make you happy, start focusing on those things. And sometimes it's amazing how quickly those things can show up. Okay, so we're talking about manifesting it today. We've got some amazing guests that are coming on. In just a few minutes, we have Laura Smith, who's an autism expert, that's going to be answering some of the questions that you guys wrote in this week that we didn't get to. And then we have the fabulous Bonnie Yates, special education attorney Bonnie Yates. She's a new grandma. It's her first time back. And we are having her on today because we're having a very special guest on a Monday. And I can't tell you who it is until tomorrow. You're going to have to tune in to tomorrow's show, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And at the very end, I will reveal. But we have a very great guest tomorrow. You're going to want to watch anyway. Kristen Roth from the Autism Society of America is going to be with us talking about their new Aut Fest this year, that's being held in Orange County on September 15th. I can remember that because it's my birthday. And I'm going to be there because I'm going to be moderating some of the panels with some of the guests after the movies have played. It's going to be really cool. So if you're in the Orange County area, come by and see that. It's $10 right now on the early bird pay, $10 for the entire day of movies all about autism and siblings is the theme. So we're talking about that tomorrow. And then I will tell you who the special guest is on Monday. But we are having Bonnie on today, and she's going to be talking about least restrictive environment. That's a mouthful for me to say. And you're all going to want to talk about that as this new school year starts. So let's take a break. We're going to kick it off with Laura Smith is going to be answering your questions after these messages. Stick with us.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas, spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
a lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. This is one of my favorite parts of the week when we welcome an autism expert to answer your questions. Today, we are welcoming Laura Smith. And Laura, we're so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to do it.
And Laura, tell us what your job title is and where you work and what you do.
Okay, so I'm the clinical manager designee. So I just moved into this position in June, and I'm in the Santa Barbara, California office. We were in the startup stages for about 18 months, and now we've been fully in our clinic for about 8 months now. So it's been really exciting.
Wonderful.
Really happy to be where we are.
And I want to specify that that's a Center for Autism and Related Disorders clinic there, a CARD office. So, and I'm
Yes,
so
it
glad
is.
that you're there. So, Laura, we have got a couple of questions for you. I'm going to launch right in. Somebody wrote in and said, what can I do to help my 4-year-old stay awake on the way home from therapy? I pick him up at the center at 5. I get him in the car, and he almost immediately falls asleep. He sleeps for the car ride home. Then I have to wake him up to eat. He's cranky and won't eat. Then I can't get him to bed. Help. And this is a rough deal for a lot of parents. So, Laura, what do you suggest?
Yeah, this sounds so tough, especially for a parent at the end of your whole workday too. But my first thought that came to mind on this is a lot of our kids have either a really focused sensory piece to their personality. So like we love visual things, we love auditory stimulation, or we have some fixated interests that we are super into Albert Einstein, super into space. So my first thing I thought was just to get the kiddo in the car and have something available that's only available for that car ride that's related to one of their interests. So basically tapping into their ability to stay hyper-focused and use that in a really positive way to hopefully get them from point A to point B and not too cranky.
And I love that answer. I just want to point out the part that she said that's key there is that the only time that thing can be available is for that car ride. That's hard for parents. But when this is wrecking your day right here, what you just told me that he's falling asleep in the car. So it's going to feel like, no, I gotta take his Buzz Lightyear doll away for the rest of the day, and he can only have it in the car ride home, but that's what's going to get it done.
Yeah.
I love that advice, Laura. Okay, so moving on. Next question. I'm trying to teach my 18-year-old son to do laundry. He just doesn't seem to care if the clothes come out right. How do I teach him to care about things he really doesn't care about? Another great question.
I know, this one is so good, and I have an older brother on the spectrum, so I literally, when I read this, like, popped into my head of my brother and my mom, like, fighting about laundry. So with all of this stuff, like, I always, especially with their teens and adults, I try to ask myself, like, what is the reason we even do these things? So I was just thinking for laundry, mostly the reason I do it is social significance. Like, I don't want people to see my dirty clothes. I don't want people to see me stinky coming into work. Like, it's really a presentation thing. Same with, like, ironing your clothes. Like, personally, I don't care if things are wrinkly, but I know that that would be something I wouldn't want to present coming to work. So if the social significance for our adults isn't there, and we're probably working on that, but it's not there, and we need to get this laundry thing going now. Kind of similar to the first one, I'd say have laundry be the key to unlocking another really preferred activity. And this, it could be small. We did recently for one of our teens, like if she did 10 clean shirts, then she could have one of those little packs of Pokemon cards. So yeah, making that really the key to unlock something else, because if the social piece isn't there, we're going to need some outside motivation.
Yeah, what a wonderful way of looking at it too, because we forget that there are certain things in our day that we just do that are not particularly our interest or what we're in love with, but we do them because there's some sort of a feedback for us that's worthwhile. Sometimes it's a treat, or sometimes it's avoiding a pain point or whatever, but we do them. And we sort of forget that with our teens on the spectrum, that they need to have something too, and that it can be something completely unrelated, but we just keep pairing it with it. And then hopefully, eventually they will care a little bit more about it, because they will clean clothes feel better on your body than rumpled, dirty clothes, right? So let's hope that eventually it transfers. And then the last question that we have, my 10-year-old is having difficulty making friends at his new school. What can I do to help him?
Yeah, this one like totally pulled on my heartstrings because it says new school in there, and I know that's really, really tough, but I think there's a lot of stuff that we could really supplement and support with here. So what we for sure know, and what I've observed a lot, is kids and adults for that matter love to talk about what they love or what they're really good at. We love to be complimented. We love a chance to show off our skills or talk about the skills that we have. So we can use that if we can collaborate with teachers, maybe parents in his new class, and kind of ID a kid in the class that would be a good friend to focus on. And then do some homework for them. So figure out what that kid does, if they play sports, what they're really excited about. I think we take for granted how many probing questions we do, like, to make friends in our initial conversations. We'll do the, like, so what do you like to do for fun? What do you do on the weekends? And then we hold on to that and we use it for the next conversation. But that is, like, a ton of skills, and I think would be a lot for a little 10-year-old. So my picture for this was us kind of doing the background work for him or her, and then sharing that with them. Like, okay, little Michael in class loves Star Wars, so I want you to go up to him. I got you this Jabba the Hutt toy, and I want you to ask him, like, hey, have you ever seen this Jabba the Hutt? And then, or, you know, the other thing, like, do you want to see my new Luke Skywalker backpack, or noticing their Luke Skywalker backpack? So they would go in already set up for success, and then I put in capitals in my notes, like, role play, role play, role play. I think the social stuff and that conversation stuff is really helpful for our kids if they've already practiced it at home and been successful. So lots of rehearsal for that one, so it goes smooth.
I love all of that advice. Wonderful advice for all of us if we want to make friends with somebody. Laura, this has been so much fun, and I appreciate you so much being a part of this with us, and I hope you'll come back and join us again another time.
Yes, please. Thanks so much for having me.
And say hi to everybody in Santa Barbara for us, okay?
Okay, I will.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. What a wonderful expert. Oops, I'm calling her back. I didn't mean to do that. What a great, I love that. I love hearing from all those people who know so much. I just wanted to quickly address, I want to say hi to a couple of people on Facebook. I want to say hi to Chris. I want to say hi to Deborah. I want to say hi to Robert. And I want to say hi to Susan. And I want to say to Robert, Robert has written in and said, how are you doing? Great to see you live. Love listening. Can I ask this? Flying with an autistic who has a broken back and severe sensory issues, what would you recommend? Okay, so that's a question that we've never gotten before, and there's a lot of different elements to that. So I'm going to give you a couple of different resources here. But if you're just flying with somebody with autism, the first thing that I would tell you to do is Google flying with autism and put in the city in which you're leaving and the city in which you're coming back, right? Because most major cities have some autism flying program now, and they're all run by different organizations. Or you could write to me and tell me which city you're flying out of to start with, and we could look at that. And even now, certain airlines have regularly scheduled programs where you come to the airport and you walk through TSA and you go through all different aspects of it, so that and go as far as getting on the plane and sitting there on the plane and going through the whole, as if you were taking off, everything but the actual takeoff, right? So that people know what to expect, and all that part of it is taken care of. And I do recommend doing something like that. We've had lots of families that have, before they were doing this in airports, they would set it up in their house and approximate it, and we would play airport. And you can do that too, but going to the actual airport, I think, really helps. So that's one element of it. And for the sensory issues, boy, flying on a plane is a real sensory thing. I recommend a couple of different things for anyone of any age. So please don't think that I'm saying that this is just for little kids or just for old. It's for anyone. A bag of things to do. And I literally do this for myself, okay? And I don't necessarily open it up, but it's things to do, because sometimes I want to do a word search and sometimes I just need something to do with my hands, right? So a goodie bag that has things in it. And one of the most important elements of it is something to chew. And here's why: because there is a sensory element that is your inner ear when you're on the plane. And so chewing helps to move the air through the eustachian tubes, which helps to mitigate some of it. So, something that they can chew. And, for some people, gum is the thing, but other people, it's a choking concern. Some people do gummies, but again, that can be a choking concern. For me personally, what I take on a plane, there's these things called ginger chews, which also help me. Ginger helps to regulate for motion sickness. You can suck on them, but that you can also chew them, and it helps me. I'm sure it's not good for fillings, but helps me all the way around with my ears and everything that's going on sensory wise. I also sometimes like to take dehydrated, organic, completely no sugar mango, because it's very chewy and you can suck on it a long time, but chew it so that it helps your ears to flow. Now, the whole broken back part of it, that is a whole other Megillah. And that I would be seeking, first of all, medical, to ask what are some accommodations that you can have on the plane. And then I would call the airline and say, I'm bringing this individual on, and you got to decide whether you want to tell them that it's autism as well. But are they going to need a special chair? Do they need to come on in a stretcher? Are they in a truss? I mean, different people with broken back means different things. But I would also be concerned about, how does this person deal with confined spaces? If you have a broken back and you're in a truss, then you might like the feeling of squish and small and whatever, or it might be too much to add in being in a confined space. If they don't like confined spaces, I would request to be seated in the bulkhead or in first class, so that you got a little bit more leg room, right? But I would definitely talk to the airport, to the airline, and say, what are some considerations? Because here's what we're dealing with. But having said all that, I will tell you that I think the goodie bag with something to chew on is one of the great things in life for anybody on a plane. And I love Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. One of the things that she used to do with her kids was that she would buy a bunch of little things and she would wrap them in wrapping paper and put them in the bag and then give that to and so at, like every 10 minutes she would pull out another thing and they would unwrap it. And that's a sensory thing for some people. Some people don't like to unwrap. Used to be that you could wrap things in tinfoil. Do not do that if you're going on the plane because you'll set off every alarm that there is, right? And make sure that the things that you have, don't bring anything that's liquid unless you put it in that container. Go over the TSA rules so that you will know. It's a lot, but it can be done, and you will be surprised that if you fly with the right things in place and they've had practice. I know a lot of people on the autism spectrum that love to fly. Love, love, love to fly because once they know what the expectations are, flying on a plane is pretty regimented. Like it's like, first A, then B, then C, and it's kind of rule following. So if they can get used to that, I think a lot of them find it very satisfying. All right, we have to go because we have to get Bonnie Yates on the phone, so stick with us.
For the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're gonna make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy. I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills. All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're gonna do is make your bowling ball since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm gonna do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm gonna put a few drops in here. And then, take this to the sink and fill it up with water and tie it a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm gonna take this and place it in the freezer with some towels just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm gonna put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. Light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Parent to parent, one of the most frightening things there is when your child wanders away or elopes. This is when they leave an area without permission. And we know, science has shown that over 50% of children on the autism spectrum will engage in this kind of behavior. But we don't have to just accept it as fact. There are things that we can do to teach our children how to appropriately ask when they want to go someplace. But before we can teach, we have to know why they're doing it. Are they wandering away to go to something, or are they wandering away to escape something? Really important that we know that. And once we do know that, then we can put in place these really effective teaching strategies. I want to remind you, though, that if your child is engaging in this kind of behavior, it's really important to work with an expert. Get professional help. They'll be able to effectively figure out why your child is doing it and put an intervention in place that's effective. And when you stop and think about it, there's nothing more important than keeping our children safe. You might be asking yourself, a BIP, what on earth is that?
inclusion is everything. Feeling like we have a place where we belong, and when I say we, I'm first and foremost a mother of a child on the spectrum and gym owner and now founder of carrying this to families who need it as well.
My son is extremely hyperactive. Getting him to calm down is a very difficult task. So the idea of Rock the Spectrum Gym, where he could just go and run and play and do all these fun things without any kind of worries and just go, go, go and bring down that energy, it helps us so much at home. You know, in the home or at school, it's not acceptable, but this is the one place it is acceptable for the child to kind of be themselves and get it all out there and just really just be themselves.
It's an amazing place where my son could go and be himself. You get to meet other parents who are in the same journey as you are.
I think the most popular aspect of it is how they include all children of all types, not just only learning disabled, lower functioning, moderate functioning, high functioning, and non-disabled.
People there are so friendly. Everybody's like family. They always greet you with a smile. There's not one negative thing I could say about any of the employees. They're all absolutely amazing. So I think every parent should walk in through those doors and see what an amazing gym it is.
Now a diagnosis meaning 1 out of 6 kids are in some way or form affected with sensory processing disorder or autism. That's why We Rock Now is on the rise. People want to be a part of it. People know that they have a community there. They know that they can learn more information about things that they don't know themselves or that they can share, build friendships, and basically get what you get in an OT facility, but it's not $150 an hour. It's $12.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are welcoming back to the show Bonnie Yates. We've missed her. If you haven't watched, good morning, Bonnie. If you haven't watched when Bonnie's been on before, Bonnie is an amazing special education attorney. She helps us to figure out what your rights are, and you guys can write in questions. And we did have some questions, but I think we've decided that this morning what we really want to focus on is a very particular thing. But let's say this, that Bonnie is here courtesy of the law firm of Hirji and Chow. And Bonnie, tell us a little bit about Hirji and Chow and then give us your personal disclaimer.
All right. So Hirji and Chow is a 6-attorney law firm. We're located in Culver City. We do special education, regional center, disability discrimination, and higher education. Our website is www.lawyer4children.com, and our phone number is 310-391-0330, and we always offer a complimentary consultation for people in Southern California. My disclaimer is I'm answering general questions under California and federal law. You may live in a different state and you may have a different experience because of your specific facts. And if you have a case and you need to talk to an attorney, I would refer you to www.copa.net. That's a 50-state listing of attorneys who are presumed to be competent and have an interest in special education representation of clients. So with that, and starting the school year off, I wanted to talk this morning about prior written notice because that's a goodie that parents need to know about and they can exercise it much more frequently than I think they do.
Okay, prior written notice, which is one of those things that sounds like to parents.
Yeah.
But can be, I'm assuming, be, as you said, quite a game changer. So what is prior written notice and how does it affect us?
What is prior written notice? Well, first of all, you will see it sometimes abbreviated PWN. And prior written notice is a place in federal and state law that provides for informed consent and kind of better parental participation. And what made me want to talk about it on the show is that it's one of those rights that we have that I don't think we understand well, and we don't use it. And it's very useful, and so I want to encourage everybody to start using it. So I know that you've had the experience of going to an IP meeting and talking intelligently about the need for a service for your child or some component of an IEP or of receiving a FAPE for your child, and the district has said no. Well, the law is that the district doesn't just get to say no and drop the subject. The district has to give you the reasons that they refused to implement the thing you requested, and the information they relied on in making the decision. So with that, I'm going to jump into prior written notice and talk a little bit about the legal framework for it. But what I'm wanting you to be thinking about is thinking back to the experiences that you've had where you feel like you asked an intelligent question and you didn't get the answer that you needed. You got to run around. So you can take a look at, you can just Google this and it'll come up and you can read it. So the statute is 34 CFR, which stands for Code of Federal Regulations, but it's abbreviated that way. 34 CFR 300.503A. And this is the definition of prior written notice. I'm going to read it to you. A district must provide parents with prior written notice whenever it proposes or refuses to initiate or change the identification, which would mean child find, evaluation, or educational placement of a child or the provision of FAPE to the child. So there's a process that's supposed to happen when you ask for a service and they say no. And the purpose of the prior written notice statute, according to the Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP, is to allow parents to fully assess the change and respond. Districts, this is a quote, districts should use common sense when timing their prior written notice to a parent. It's best to wait till the end of an IEP to avoid the appearance of predetermination. At the same time, the timing of the notice should be such that parents have enough time to assess the change and voice their objections. So if a district comes into an IEP meeting and they give you prior written notice before the meeting is over, the concern would be that they've already made up their mind, and so it's not really a discussion, it's really predetermination. With that said, if you request stuff at the IEP and they say yes or they say no, they're supposed to give you prior written notice if there's a disagreement. And they can give it at the end of the IEP and satisfy the requirements, but they have to not just say no, they have to say yes or no, and here's why, and here's the information we relied on in saying yes or no to whatever you proposed. So the prior written notice has to contain the following elements. 1, a description of what is proposed or refused, an explanation of why the agency made the decision, a description of each evaluation, procedure, record, or report on which the district relied for the decision, the giving of the parents their procedural safeguards at the same time as giving them the prior written notice, sources for assistance to resolve the problem, options considered and reasons for rejecting others, and a description of other relevant factors in making the decision. And if you want to look at that section or use it as the basis of writing a letter, you can just Google California Education Code 56500.4B. The notice must be given within a reasonable time before a change of placement or a provision of FAPE, and that's again back to that 34 CFR 300.503A. That's the federal law. Districts are required to consider parent preferences. The idea does not require a school district to accept parents' choice of program, but it must consider suitable alternatives and try to reach consensus. But ultimately, if that doesn't happen, it's up to the district to offer FAPE, and they have to do so, but also give the prior written notice. So let me just talk about a couple cases, Shannon, and then we could talk about your thoughts about all this.
Okay. We've got we've got a little less than 5 minutes.
We're good. So in Portland School District, I can't read my citation, California, Oregon, and Washington and Hawaii. The district repeatedly refused to evaluate a 7-year-old student with sensory processing disorder in order to determine if they had dyslexia, dysgraphia, etc., and that violated the IDA. Training was ordered to the entire staff about how to process these kind of requests for evaluation. You have, if you're going to not evaluate, you have to give prior written notice. And what they did is they just said the school psychologist is out. She won't be back till later this year, so we can't do the evaluation. And that lack of a straight answer was violative of the IDEA. You can give the notice verbally, but it has to be very specific. That's discussed in the Union School District versus Smith. You have to give it in the native language of the parent. And if the proposed change modifies an offer to the child, that's a change in placement, so you have to give prior written notice. It has to be a permanent change, though. So if it's just like speech therapist is out for 2 weeks and you're going to get comp time later, that wouldn't trigger the notice requirement. There's no requirement that they give you prior written notice as to their methodology. But the methodology, if it's written in the IEP and they propose to change it, let's say you're receiving ABA services and they propose to change it, that would probably trigger the requirement of prior written notice. I also think you can ask for prior written notice if they won't discuss the research basis on which they relied in making a service offer. I think you can ask for prior written notice in attempting to determine whether their RSP services or whatever service they offered was based on research or not. So the prior written notice must provide sufficient detail to allow the student or parent to participate in the IEP in an informed way. That's the purpose of this. While the district isn't locked into the prior written notice it gives and it can change it at the next IEP, the idea is that within a reasonable time frame, the parents would get an answer to what they consider to be issues that are outstanding or unresolved, or if the district is proposing a change that the parents think is wrong, this gives them a way to have a discussion about it that's meaningful. And so I think when we're all reflecting on this, everybody's going to be a little surprised because we've all been victim to they say no, we, go deer in the headlights on the whole situation, and we never come back and ask them to justify their decision.
Well, and we've only got a minute and a half now, but so I want to know, because how many years have I been in this, and how many IEPs have I been to where they said no to me, and I didn't know, and I've never seen a prior written notice as you described it in the criteria. So for our parents watching who have not gotten prior written notice, what happens when you didn't get it? Do you request it, or?
You can. We do. And it's also potentially a violation of FAPE. It's a FAPE violation.
And so then you go to due process.
Yeah, and the argument would be we didn't get prior written notice on this important issue, and it's a denial of parental participation and a denial of FAPE. When we do get these letters, and certain districts do detailed versions of them, I mean, I'm sure they hate them because it takes them several pages to actually articulate this.
Yeah.
But certain districts are doing them, and I think that's because they've gotten knuckle-wrapped for it. Yeah. What I'm going to try to do between now and next week is I'm going to send you a sanitized prior written notice.
Okay.
So that you can see what one of these should look like.
All right.
Or could look like.
All right. All right. We will look forward to that.
And next week, we are going to talk about private school placements because that seems to be going on so much now in Southern California.
All right, we will do that. Bonnie, we thank you so much, and we're so glad that you're back and thrilled to have you back. Thank you so much for being, and please say the website again for Hear Ji and Chow.
Oh yeah, www.lawyer4children.com. I look forward to your questions and to talking with all of you next week.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Bye-bye.
Bye, Shannon.
That was Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, and you can find her at Hear Ji and Chow. We're totally out of time, but let me say this. Tomorrow, Great show that we're going to be doing. We've got Kristen Roth from the Autism Society of America, who's going to be with us. And tomorrow we're going to unveil what our big guests, plural, are going to be on Monday. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.